handing over the floor to Tomislav Bituh, who is scientific senior scientific associate here from the institute. So yeah, please tell us something.
So hello, thank you for the opportunity. Today we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna have a short introduction about radioactivity for you. The name of the lecture is known about unknown or unknown about known, because most of you know about this stuff, but this is like a small systematic overview of radioactivity. We're going to talk about radioactive nuclear waste, which is a popular theme in Croatia last couple of years. Then the storage and the disposal, the differences between the storage and the disposal of waste, and some major radiological nuclear accidents which you know about, but maybe there's some facts you didn't hear before. So who discovered the radioactivity? Do you know? Okay. Okay. By the way, you can interrupt me anytime you want. It's no problem for me. Okay, so Marie Curie and Pierre Curie discovered radioactivity parallel with Henri Becquerel. So as you know, people think that all discoveries end up with yelling Eureka or something like that. However, it is most common that discoveries end up with, oh, this is odd, what's happening here, and stuff like that. So Becquerel put uranium ore inside the drawer where he had some photographic film, and then he found out that the film was enlightened, and so he concluded that there must be some kind of light emitted from the rock. Of course, it was gamma rays. Actually, it was particles of light. Marie Curie, Pierre Curie and Henri Becquerel got a Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903, and Marie Curie got one more in chemistry in 1911. So they discovered radium, which the name is radioactivity comes from. Polonium, which they name after Poland, their motherland. Then there's curium named after them, and a lot of different radionuclides. So when it was discovered, radium, it was a hit. So they put it in cosmetics because when you put it on your skin, you glow in the dark and your skin is so light and stuff like that. So they didn't know anything about bad stuff about radioactivity. These are all-day Viagras. So you put this metal container with radium inside the pocket, and it's for so you can be more potent as a man, stuff like that. Of course, radium water, which was considered healthy. Radium chocolate, which glows in the dark. Of course, toothpaste. Your teeth have to be white and glow. And it was used until they noticed that there's people who are using or working with radioactivity had some illnesses, sicknesses, and similar conditions. So first time they noticed it was radium girls. Radium girls were women painting dials on watches with a luminous color from radium, and the work with radium wouldn't be the problem, but the paintbrush they use each time they licked it like this, so it get pointy. And a lot of them developed tumors and leukemia and stuff like that. So this is the first time they noticed that radioactivity is not something to be playing with. Now, the definition of radioactivity you probably know. So it's occurrence of ionizing radiation in form of particles with high speed or photons with high energies. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, the things we're talking about today is ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation has the ability to ionize water and molecules in our cells and cause damages, while this non-ionizing radiation are much longer waves with lower frequencies, so they don't influence our body like that. Radionuclides are unstable atoms with unstable nucleus. about types of decay. So we have a alpha decay. So it's an alpha particle. Alpha particle is a helium nucleus with 2 protons and 2 neutrons. The example is radium-226, which then decays to its daughter radium-222. So I'll talk about decay chains a bit later. Beta decay is an electron which can be positively or negatively charged, and it's emitted from the nucleus. The example is cesium-137, and the gamma decay is a photon. It's a gamma ray. So it's the example is when cesium is decaying to barium, metastable barium. This one is emitting gamma ray and becomes barium-137. So this is just some basic stuff, introduction, so we can talk about this waste problems and accidents later. Also, the principles of shielding that we use are based on this types of decay. So alpha particles can be stopped with a simple sheet of paper. They have a short, they travel short, they're big, and they have a high energy. Beta particles are stopped by aluminum foil, for example, and gamma and neutrons are passing through all of this. Gamma is stopped by lead shielding, and neutrons can pass even through lead and concrete, and neutrons are usually stopped by water. So it's spent nuclear fuel is kept in the pools. One important thing is half-life of a radionuclide. So the half-life is the time needed for the activity to decrease by half. So if you have initial radioactivity, one half-life time, the activity increases to half. So after 7 half-lives, we consider that the radionuclide is no more radioactive. Where can we find radionuclides? So the 3 categories of radionuclides surrounding us are primordial radionuclides, which are here from the beginning of Earth. Cosmogenic radionuclides that are formed when cosmic radiation interacts with different atoms in our atmosphere. And human-made or anthropogenic radionuclides, which the name says by itself. So primordial radionuclides, the main examples are uranium-238, uranium-235, and thorium-232. And potassium-40, which is a constituent of our body. And we have a lot of potassium in food, in soil and stuff like that, so we're exposed to it. You will see how much later. These are the decay chains from uranium-238, 235, and thorium-232. And each of these decay chain has, so we have a parent radionuclide, daughters that decay, and it ends up with stable lead, so each of them. So these black nuclides are no longer radioactive. Cosmogenic radionuclides, tritium, beryllium-7, and carbon-14. You know carbon from carbon dating. Beryllium is usually found on ground after precipitation. So if you have a long dry periods, you won't find beryllium. And tritium also, you know, it's formed in nuclear facilities. Also, human-made radionuclides, anthropogenic radionuclides are the examples iodine-131, cesium-137, cesium-134, and strontium-90. So these 3 are mostly found in our atmosphere since the 60s, when there was nuclear weapon tests done by US, by France, by Russia. And of course, after large nuclear accidents. So the interesting thing is that 3 or 4 times more of these radionuclides were emitted during nuclear weapons tests than Fukushima and Chernobyl together. So these radionuclides have half-life of 30 years, around 30 years. So you will need total 210 years to not see them anymore in the atmosphere. And the good uses of radioactivity, of course, in medical facilities, X-rays, computerized tomography, where you ingest some kind of radionuclide, which is short-lived. The half-life are usually in a couple of hours. And you get a scan, so you see where the nuclide is connected to some tumor tissue or stuff like that. This is a picture I took in Slovenia. It is a research reactor, so for scientific research we use it, and of course the nuclear power stations where we produce electricity. So how are we exposed usually from radioactivity? So we have internal and external doses we received from radioactivity. So external is from soil, we said from primordial radionuclides. Cosmic, somebody who travels more with plane gets some more doses from cosmic radiation. Pilots and stewardesses have special dosimetry that they need to be controlled. And artificial, it depends. You can go through life with no medical exposure to radioactivity, and you can go through a couple of CT scans, which are really, really high doses. Internal doses we get from food, from ingestion. Everything around us is radioactive. Food is radioactive, so we get some 9% of yearly dose from food. And most of it comes from inhalation of radon, which is natural gas. You heard about radon probably. It's a daughter of radium-226, which is emitted from the ground. So people who live in basements or near ground, if they don't have a good ventilation system or radon falls, they are exposed more to radon. And more international communities more and more into this the program of radon mapping, so you can see where people are more exposed, and you can have some remediation actions. So I want you to remember this total yearly dose that we receive. This is the world average. Some parts of the world receive smaller doses, some parts larger, but this is world average. So 2.4 millisieverts. It's a unit. You don't need to know what it means, but 2.4 millisieverts per year. Remember this for later. So there could be 2 or 3 different lectures about effects of on human body. However, important is the distinguish between deterministic and stochastic effects. So in deterministic effects, we have a threshold dose. So we know the dose where the effects start showing up. So it's a hair loss, it's a skin injury, burns, and stuff like that. And in stochastic effects, we don't know the threshold dose. So you can be exposed to levels of radioactivity your whole life and not developed any tumors or cancers, and you can be exposed to one dose and develop it. So we don't know what happened. And the good example is Marie Curie, who lived more than 70 years and worked with high doses of radioactivity each day. So her threshold dose for this was later in life. Just some couple of things about radioactive sources. So the terminology, the source is activity of a source is the number of radionuclide decays per second. So becquerel is the unit. So 1 becquerel is 1 decay per second. And we usually use kilo, mega, giga, or tera becquerel. So giga and tera becquerels are strong sources. This is maybe important for you for later activities in this workshop. Historical unit and still used in the USA is Curie, but Curie was a really large unit. 1 Curie was 3.7 times 10 to 10th becquerel. So it's for lower activity sources, it was micro Curie, pico Curie. So international community decided to use becquerel as a unit. So becquerel is a SI unit. Okay, so now this, I would say, maybe a boring part, this theoretical part. Now we're going to talk more about other stuff, maybe more interesting for you. So about radioactive and nuclear waste. So the radioactive waste is a type of hazardous waste that contains radioactive material, which is logic by itself. So there's a lot of classification of sub-classifications, but these three are the main. Low-level waste, intermediate level waste, and high-level waste. So, So low-level waste are usually some papers, rags, tools, clothes, or filters from nuclear industry for nuclear research. And this waste has activities to 5 gigabecquerels, and it can be burned, of course, controllably, but it can be burned, so it's handled easier. Intermediate level waste are activities up to 500 terabecquerels per cubic meter, and this waste, this is water purification waste from nuclear facilities, ion exchange reagents for filters they use to filter the water, and this waste needs shielding. So you need to shield it from the outside, so nobody is exposed to it. And high-level waste is waste from nuclear reactors, so spent nuclear fuel, and it needs cooling. So it's more than 500 terabecquerel per cubic meter, and it needs cooling. So the cooling of waste in these pools that you saw pictures probably is because of the heat it produces. In Croatia, we have a total of at the moment, we have total of 7.5 cubic meters of waste. There are a couple of storage facilities that are sealed by the International Atomic Energy Agency. One is at our institute, one is at Ruđer Bošković Institute, and there are some other waste in hospitals and facilities that use the radionuclides. And total activity is around 16 terabecquerel. So it's a lot of activity. However, volume of the waste, most of the waste is low-level waste by volume. However, the 96% of activity is from this small part, this small volume of high-level waste. And it usually is like that in worldwide. So how is radioactive and nuclear waste formed? Where does it come from? It comes from mining industry, nuclear power generation, defense industry, so nuclear weapons, medicine, and from scientific research. Nuclear power plants are the biggest producer of waste. At the moment, this is the fresh information from last week. So we have 410 nuclear reactors in the world. And 223 research reactors, and total power of these reactors are around 370 gigawatts, and it's about 11% of total world energy production. At the moment, 57 are under construction. I think most of them in China, and 100 in planning. The first one was in Obninsk in Russia in 1954. It was the first commercial nuclear power plant, and the largest one is in Japan, Kashiwazaki Kariwa. It has 7 reactors and almost 8 gigawatts of power. So it's a really large nuclear power plant. Now, why is nuclear fuel good? Because it has a huge calorical value. So one little pellet of nuclear fuel has the same amount of calories as 1 ton of charcoal. You can see the differences. So it's a lot of calories. So I find this interesting fact that you don't need uranium because it has a lot of calories. And one also fun fact is that fresh nuclear fuel is not dangerous, so it can be handled. It's not so radioactive. However, spent nuclear fuel is deadly. It's really high active. So Croatians have a 50-50 ownership of a nuclear power plant in Krško, which is around 30 kilometers from Zagreb on Sava River. Krško was started the commercial operation in 1983. It's American technology. It's Westinghouse's pressurized water reactor. It has electric power of 0.7 gigawatts. and it's one of the top 25% efficient nuclear power plants in the world. And for us, important, it is one of the best, if not the best, according to stress tests that are organized by International Atomic Energy Agency. So their security levels and their safety is on top level. It will be in operation until 2043, and in Croatia it provides around 17% electricity. At the moment, the inventory of waste is about 450 tons of high-level waste and around 2,250 cube meters of low-level and intermediate level waste. I'm saying this because half of it is owned by Croatia, and we have to take it. This is just some photos. It looks like this is a spent nuclear fuel tank where it's cooled down, and reactor, I won't get into how it works, but the core, the nuclear core, so it produces heat produces steam turns the turbine, which generates electricity, and water is from river Sava water is used to cool down and to condensate, and cold water goes again to the reactor. So I said that, so we must take 50% of the low level and intermediate level waste. However, the high level waste will stay at Krško power plant until the final solution. We don't know yet what the final solution will be, but there are some ideas now. Slovenians have ARAO, it's Agency for Radioactive Waste, and they have a storage at the moment where they store intermediate and low-level waste. However, they're building a 50-meter deep well-type containment building, which will be storage for their low-level and intermediate-level waste. In Croatia, we decided to build our storage in Cherkezovac. It's you see, so this is Zagreb, and this is in this part of Croatia. It's an old military facility where the military doesn't need it anymore. It's not interesting for them, so they gave it to the government. It's called Fund for nuclear waste from nuclear radiological waste from Krško, and now there's let's say investigations and feasibility studies that are being done. The deadline was this year. However, the deadline was longer until I think 2 more years. We'll see. We did a huge project with Ruđer Bošković Institute and Faculty of Agronomy, and we did environmental monitoring, the zero state of environmental radioactivity. So we covered this whole area of this whole part of Croatia. The storage is here where you see these 4 black dots. And we covered it with samples from environment according to standardized procedures. So water, soil, foodstuffs, feeding stuff, air sampling, all that needs to be done for this part. And the part and Bosnian part, we don't know yet. I don't know yet what's in what stage is that. They have to do their own zero state monitoring before. So everybody that has the nuclear spent nuclear fuel can send and must send because it's convenient. There's a couple of factories, but the biggest one is in Le Hague in France. It's Areva is the company that owns it, and you send them your spent nuclear fuel, and you get 4% back of recycled high-level waste, and the other 96% they used in other nuclear industries. So you let's say you lower the amount of waste you get. So now I want to talk about the differences between storage and disposal. So this is maybe important to know. The storage is temporarily. So the storage is are built to last 10 to 100 years. And they can be different type of storages and repositories, but the first one is the storage for decay. So this is for short-lived radionuclides where you can store them, and then after 7 half-lives, they're no more radioactive, and you can dump them with other waste. They're no more radioactive. So it's mostly for medical sources that are used in medicine, as I said, in tomography or stuff like that. And landfill type repository, you will see some examples. It's when you put waste on in a landfill and you cover it with foils, soil, and grass. Near surface, it's a combination. It will be something similar to Slovenian will be something between these two. So in depth of 10 to 50, 100 meters, and near surface. So the upper buildings will store low-level waste, and the lower ones will store high-level waste. And the deep geological repository, which must be deep enough. In 2012, I visited Kovra. So this is in Holland, in the Netherlands. It's their storage facility for all types of waste. It's situated on the coast of North Sea, near, let's say, Antwerpen, but the town is Vlissingen. Where is it located? It's best for me. It's the best example. If you need to learn something about waste, you go there, and you have these facilities where you have you'll see the photos. You have everything, how it works, how it's stored, how it's kept. And then we visited all of this building, including this yellow building where the spent nuclear fuel is. It is built. The facilities are built from materials to last at least 100 years. For example, this building for spent nuclear fuel is built by concrete that they use for the dams on North Sea to not let in the sea, because the levels of the country is below sea level. So it's let's say attested. It's a standardized concrete that can last at least 100 years. So when you have low-level, intermediate-level waste, like filters, like cloths and clothes, you press it into this barrel, you press it, then you pack it into larger barrels, and you pour around it, you pour bentonite. Bentonite is a type of concrete, but it has the ability to heal itself. It breaks in humid condition, it heals itself, so it's great for this stuff. If it's something liquid, then it's liquefied with glass, and then hardened with glass and packed in this type of containers. So if the waste is higher levels, these barrels are put into more concrete or more thick barrels from leather concrete. Also, they use inside the storages, they use low-level waste to shield high-level waste. So this is one more way to keep the radioactivity from going outside. This is the depleted uranium in a lead-shielded containment. And as you see, this guy, we were walking around it, so you don't get high doses. It's a really good type of storing it. This is the building of for spent nuclear fuel, and it's interesting. They decided to paint the building each, I don't know, 5 or X years into lighter paint until it becomes white. So it's like when it comes light, it won't be dangerous anymore. No more high radioactivity. They pack the spent nuclear fuel inside the pellets and the rods inside these special type of containers. Then these containers goes into different types of containers. This is the control room, and the facility. Everything is controlled by robots. So this is the scheme. The spent nuclear fuel comes in with the train, and the robots take it into the facility. They test it if there was some leakages by robot hands and stuff like that, and then they put it into this well type containments. This is the model of well type, and the best thing about it is that this this part of the building has natural air circulation, so they don't depend on electricity to cool down the spent nuclear fuel, and it works perfectly because it's all natural cooling. These are these wells from the top, and as you can see, we walked around it, so the doses are not so high. They check it every time, and of course, when the spent nuclear fuel comes, nobody is there, but they check it. You see, the door is like 1 meter or 70 centimeter thick lead door, so everything is constructed to be safe. Now the storages are also used for keeping items from museums in Netherlands because two things. First, relative humidity is constant and it's good for the artifacts. And the second, the radioactivity is not so high to harm humans, but it kills microorganisms. So these tapisseries are kept and safe inside the storages. And for me, the most interesting part in these storages is the original tube with radium from Marie Curie, so from her lab. And they keep it in this lead containment. This is the lead glass you can see through. This is a probe, like a measurement probe for dose rate. And as you can see, the dose rate by near the tube is 1.17 millisieverts per hour. So now we go back to this 2.4 millisieverts per year that we received. And you can see that Marie Curie actually received this dose in 2 hours each day working with this. So the lifetime dose she received is more than 10 sieverts, so 10,000 millisieverts. And so these stochastic effects we talked about is actually really late in her life started to work. Some other example of storages. So in Aube in France, it's a landfill storage for low level intermediate level waste. In Manche, France, they built a mountain with waste. France has around 60 nuclear power plants. They produce a lot of waste. And as you can see, it's covered with foils and concrete, and grass is built around it, so it doesn't look ugly, but still it can be stored, and it's a storage. So we talked about 100 years. Morsleben in Germany, Germans used old salt mines that are abandoned to store their waste. And so this is, I'm not sure if this is not the final solution, definitely, because they closed up the storages recently and they're afraid of leaking. The barrels could leak. The geology of these salt mines are adequate for this because there's no groundwaters. It's been tested. Salt mines are large, but still it's not the final solution, definitely. And now the disposal opposed to storage, it's a final solution. So it's the more than 100 years, and the risk assessment is done by 10 or 20,000 years. The idea is to isolate waste from biosphere and protect the people and environment. The depth must be 400 or more to 1,000 meters. The importance is geological part, so it should be some kind of rock that is not permeable, so it can, if something leaks, doesn't leak further. And of course, the engineering barriers that are used, the storage containers, iron, copper, bentonite that we talked about, and the geology of the deposition site. This is the concept. So you have an entrance building, you have tunnels that go deep, so 1,000-meter deep, or like in mines. And then you have service tunnels and tunnels where you store the waste. The waste is the pellets are put into these tubes, the tubes in some more tubes and more containment. And then you put it into a well, you pour bentonite over it. You can shield it with other low-level waste, or you can shield it with more bentonite, and afterwards you cannot get, so when bentonite hardens, that's it. You cannot get to it, and it cannot get out from it. So the The disposal site has, for example, security must be just in the beginning when it's filled with waste, but afterwards you don't need even security because you cannot get to that. So the example is Yucca Mountain in USA, which is closed. They put their nuclear waste there, but they closed it because they found some new groundwater. And now they're afraid it could be, it's not the final solution. And now at the moment, US don't have a solution for their nuclear and radioactive waste. In Germany, they are, I think this or next year, they will start putting fuel inside. So this is how it looks. This Konrad, Schach Konrad, it's an old mine. It's 1,000-meter deep, and they also have one 760-meter deep, and they will connect it with a 18-kilometer channel, and it will be each type of waste will be stored there. It looks like this today, so it will be stored in these tunnels. And for me, I think all of us will dispose our nuclear waste in Onkalo, Finland. We will have to pay a lot of money for it, but it's open this year, and they're starting to dispose their own waste first. At the moment, the policy is that they will not accept other waste, but the plan is really big waste disposal. So I think they will charge to dispose of your nuclear fuel. This is I think it's a granite rock that they are digging the disposal in, so it's really good. There's no earthquakes there. It's not porous, so it's really good to store it there. And this is the model how it will look afterwards. So nuclear, what can go wrong? We had these two large nuclear accidents, Fukushima not recently, but in 2011, and Chernobyl. And I'll talk about one radiological accident that happened in the 80s in Brazil. So Fukushima accident, this is a recent one. So just to remind you what happened there. So on March 11th in 2011, there was an earthquake, one of the biggest ones in Japan near the coast. And the earthquake was 9 degrees and around 2:45. There was no damage to the nuclear power plant, and everything automatically stopped. There was an outside power outage because of the earthquake, and they started getting power from their diesel generator. Everything was okay. Everything was according to procedure. Then 1 hour later, 14-meter tsunami hit the coast. So as you can see on this sketch, so the power plant was built to withhold a 10-meter tsunami, and this 4 meters of water flooded the power plant. So the flood reached the diesel generators, and they stopped working. So if the diesel generators were built 500 meters further into coast, nothing would happen in Fukushima. So I would say, as Chernobyl, maybe this is also human mistake, not just nature. They also have electric generator for reserve for 8 hours. I'm talking about these hours and this timetable, let's say, because they had enough time to react. So actually they knew what will happen, the explosion that happened, they knew what at each moment they will happen. And they had the time to evacuate people. They evacuated the cities and villages around it. They evacuated the workers that didn't need to be there. So they didn't have a lot of casualties. So after this 8-hour cooling, they had only cooling from the evaporation of water inside the reactor. So when the water evaporated, the hydrogen forms on the fuel vessel, which entered the spent fuel pool, and the pressure rises, and the hydrogen comes into contact with air and explodes. So you remember from TV maybe, or you saw it later, before and after the explosion. So this was the explosion of hydrogen. These explosions emitted radionuclides from the building, but not large quantities like in Chernobyl. However, the explosions also happened in units 2 and 3, so it increases the amount. And in unit 4, the water in pool boiled, and the explosion damaged the pool. And this is still the biggest problem, because the water from so the new spent nuclear fuel had to be cooled. New water is pumped into the pool, and this radioactive water is leaking out. Now they're pumping it and collecting it on site in large tanks. And then to my knowledge, they're purifying it. And then when you purify the water, you can let it into the sea with minimal activity concentrations of radionuclides. So the Fukushima accident is an example of let's say, good practice within nuclear accidents. I think only 1 or 2 people died there, but not from nuclear, but from the flood, the tsunami. And there were only a couple of people that received the high doses of radioactivity, not deadly, but higher. Chernobyl, who watched the HBO series on Chernobyl? Let's see. Okay, if you didn't watch it, for me, in the last episode, when the scientist explains to the court what happened, is maybe the best explanation of what happened there for professionals, non-professionals. So it was in March, in April 26th and 1986. It was caused by human mistake and from the design flaw of the reactor. There was, I won't get into details, but there was a rapid increase of power, 1,000 times. There was an explosion and a fire of graphite burned. So you all know from documentaries and from the stories how it looked, how the reactor looked afterwards. The firemen that went there got acute radiation syndrome. They're called liquidators because they liquidate stuff. So most of them either died or suffered illnesses later in life. There was no dose assessment, and some assessment says that more than 200,000 liquidators received the dose more than 100 millisieverts. The large numbers because they sent army to clean up the roof of a reactor before they put the sarcophagus over it. So you can see the plumes, how it began on 27th. It went to Scandinavia, then the currents went to the south, and it reached Croatia. That was then in ex-Yugoslavia. It reached somewhere around 1st of May, night from 30th to 1st of May. So in our institute, because our radiation protection unit is working since 1959, we have people who were there on duty. And the guy thought that the dose rate meter is broken because it showed really high doses, and he called our boss. It was Dr. Baumann then. She was world-known scientist working with radiation. And then she called her contacts all over the Europe and got the information from Scandinavia. So because we were living in communism, it was not allowed to stress the people about this stuff. It was military stuff. But her daughter was working on Radio Zagreb, and she took her to the show, and she admitted she was giving information through radio, and then went to jail for a couple of days and stuff like that. Nothing special. But she informed the people to stay at home, to seal their doors so the radiation doesn't enter. And we're all a generation, I think most of us born in this period of time have a problem with our thyroids because of this iodine that was emitted. So they built the sarcophagus, but it deteriorated over time. And a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, a 2.1 billion euro project from European Bank was the new sarcophagus. It's a structure of 35,000 tons from concrete and metal framework, and it's now covering the old sarcophagus. Also, they built inside, как се каже, дизалице? Huh? Elevators and machinery. So when they decommission the power plant, the robots can decommission it, so people don't have to go there. And they built it in 206 days. So the structure, it was I think there were 10,000 workers doing it. They built it outside the Chernobyl, and they rolled it on tracks over it, so it's covered like that. So it's fascinating structure now, and it's built for 100 years now. It's also like temporary before the commissioning. And the last accident, it was a radiological accident. It's not a nuclear accident. So in September 87, there was two guys stole a radiotherapy source. As you can see, really strong source, 50 or 51 terabecquerel source of cesium-137 from an abandoned hospital in Guyana in Brazil. And they came home and disassembled it. They thought it will be worth something. And then when they disassembled it, they pulled out the source, and it was also glowing in the dark, so it was fun. So they distributed it all over the city to people. They had like a party and night. It was time of the festival, so it was really fun. But even the first evening, both of them suffered radiation sickness, and even because of the burns, they amputated their several fingers. Now, because they distributed all over, and the money was contaminated, the hand doors were on the doors were contaminated. A lot of people were exposed, so they decided to examine all of the citizens. So it was 112,000 people, and they found around 250 people contaminated, 28 radiation sickness, severe damage to the bone marrow, 14 of them acute radiation symptoms, 8 of them, and 4 deaths because of the handling of. Then they remediated. They took the layer of the ground from the contaminated side. They pulled down the buildings, and now they have 3,500 cubic meters of waste from it. So this is I wanted to put this as an example of how knowledge or lack of knowledge can cause a really expensive accident. So to summarize, and Marco said this would be cool to show, we have I have a chart that shows the different doses that you receive. It's from US, so there are some references to US, but still it works. So different doses that you receive you can receive during lifetime, to the higher doses, the highest doses that they received in Chernobyl. So as you can see, sleeping next to someone, 0.05 microsieverts. So because we have a lot of potassium, we are radioactive. So if you sleep next to someone, you receive this 0.05 microsieverts. So it's really, really low dose, but you receive something. So if you live 50 miles from a nuclear power plant, you receive just a little bit more than sleeping to someone. So you can see it's not dangerous to have a nuclear power plant near you. Eating a banana is full of potassium 40. So eating a banana gives you a dose 0.1 microsieverts. So there are some YouTube videos where people explain radioactivity through banana activities. So something can be, I don't know, radioactive or a million bananas or stuff like that. Arm X-ray, somebody may have, so 1 microsievert, so it's not a lot. Today the X-ray machines are really quick, and you don't get high doses. Dental X-ray, 5 times more because it's on the face, so more tissue is exposed. 1 airplane flight from New York, you get this type of dose of 40 microsieverts. And now when we combine all these doses and put it into small green squares, we go level up. So you get like living in a stone, brick, or concrete building because of natural radioactivity from these materials. You get around 70 microsieverts. So these are all low doses. Example, mammogram, 400 microsieverts. Head CT scan, 2 millisieverts. So it's a yearly dose if you go to head CT scan. Chest CT scan, because the lungs are really they can be really harmed by radioactivity, so you get 7 millisieverts. So it's around 3 yearly doses. But if you have to do it, you have to do it. And in US, the maximal yearly dose permitted for radiation workers, so people who do who are doing work with X-rays, technicians, and in scientific research, they can reach 50 millisieverts. In Europe, it's 20 millisieverts during 5 years. So this is a bit different, but still, it's not. It's a high dose, but if you work with it, you're exposed. You have to be controlled, and these are the risk assessments show that this is okay. Now, all of these, if we combine, we get around 75 millisieverts. And now we go to Fukushima and Chernobyl. So 2 workers in Fukushima got around 180 millisieverts dose. Lowest 1-year dose linked to increased cancer risk is around 100 millisieverts. So it's not a threshold dose, but it's somewhere floating, let's say floating threshold dose. If you receive 4 sieverts, you can be treated and maybe survive, but it's not sure. And if you receive 8 sieverts, you're probably dead. However, when we combine all of these doses and put it into one yellow square, these are the doses that firemen in Chernobyl received, so around 50 sieverts. So if somebody did survive from them, it was pure luck, or I don't know, DNA repair damage mechanism perfect or something like that, but it's a deadly dose. So these are the charts, so you can see from, let's say, something that's not dangerous, not harmful, to this red. So thank you.